Previously on Daigotaku. This movie blows chunks, but this one was okay though. My Hero Academia Season 2 was the best anime I saw in 2017, and that was because I didn't have an Amazon Prime account to see Made in Abyss. Lubbed up? What the hell does lubbed up mean? I don't get this comment at all.
This comment gave me AIDS.
Robots can't get AIDS! And now, the epic-ish continuation. I don't care, I don't care, I don't give a shit. You can all kiss my ass, it's Inuyasha mess. Are we still using that stupid intro jingle? Ugh, whatever. It's Inuyasha time again, and this time, we're covering Swords of an Honorable Ruler. I forgot how the taglines could be quite a mouthful. Honestly, there isn't much information I can give you that I haven't already. Toshiya Shinohara came back as the director, Katsuyuki Sumisawa wrote the script, and Kaoru Wada did the soundtrack again. Of course, that doesn't say much, since most of it is ripped from the anime. From what I could gather, there tended to be some changes in the production staff between films. However, these guys were consistently involved. I'll link the movie's IMDb and Mal pages down below for those interested. Anyway, onto the synopsis. So this one guy named Takemaru wanted to bang Inuyasha's mom, Izayoi, but Inuyasha's dad, Toga, cucked him and got her pregnant, and so Takemaru decided to burn the castle Izayoi was in, but Toga used Tenseiga to tell some underworld demons to suck his hairy dog demon dick. Toga fights Takemaru and they both die, Inuyasha is born, and then the actual plot kicks off. So it turns out there's this evil sword called Sounga that represents hell, with Tessaiga representing earth, and Tenseiga representing heaven. Rule of 3, anyone? Anyway, Sounga possesses Inuyasha, who is able to fend him off, resurrects Takemaru, Inuyasha and Sesshomaru fight every now and then, shit hits the fan, and that's the movie. Is it good? Well, despite what most people think about criticism of any kind, professional or no, it's more of a subjective matter. I personally thought the movie was actually entertaining for what it was. However, that doesn't mean it's without its fair share of screw-ups, so let's talk about what I liked and go from there. Number 1. The world building. Despite the overall focus of the series, Inuyasha always had one thing going for it. Its world building. The mythological elements of the world were always more interesting than Inuyasha and Kagome's petty squabbling and abusive behavior. I mean romance. Anyway, despite the series being set in feudal Japan, it feels a lot more expansive than it has any right to be. The various tribes, human and demon dynamics, Naraku, the Band of Seven, there's also Inuyasha's father Toga, better known as the Great Dog Demon. Though not explicitly touched upon that much from what I've seen, he seems like the type of character who could have his own stories written about him. That's the neat thing about Inuyasha. Its wide array of characters and factions make up one of the most interesting mythos in anime fiction, at least on a contextual level. Most of the stuff in Inuyasha's world is so interesting that it's a shame it had to be used for such a mediocre show. Maybe there's some good fanfiction involving this stuff. Or maybe there's just a bunch of angsty romance bullshit, I don't fucking know. Number 2. The art style. One thing I can give Rumiko Takahashi is that her art style is good. Not great, but good. It's got a recognizable feel to it that pretty much anyone can pinpoint at first glance. Many manga and anime nowadays tend to blend together in terms of how they look, and that has always bothered me. So, when something has a discernible art style, I'll tend to gravitate towards it more, regardless of how I feel about it. That doesn't mean there isn't any substance in something that looks lackluster, but an art style can really help a series, be it good or bad, go a long way, and Takahashi is definitely one of the greats in that regard. Another thing I'll give Inuyasha is that it has one of the best music compositions in anime history. I'm not just talking about OPs and EDs, I'm talking about the soundtrack as a whole. Though most of the OPs and EDs are good in their own right, I'm more of a fan of the instrumental tracks. Really gives off the feudal era vibe that the show is known for. And as ironic as this is going to sound, due to how I feel about the character, I believe Inuyasha's theme to arguably be the best in the series. I love that song, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Number 4. Shishomaru is clearly best grill. I know this is going to sound weird to diehard fans of the series, or maybe not, I'm not familiar with that fandom really, but I find Shishomaru to be a better character than the guy the show is named after. From what I've seen of his character arc, it was far more interesting than the fetch quest the show is known for. He starts off as arrogant, power-hungry, and considers humans and other demons completely inferior, but learns to be more compassionate and willing to protect those under him as the series progresses. Meanwhile, we have the main story where Inuyasha and Kagome have to find jewel shards, take down those possessed by them, and deal with Naraku every so often, all while a crappy romance blossoms between them. The more I think about it, the more of a disservice this show is to a character like Sesshomaru. I personally wouldn't mind some kind of spin-off focused solely on him. Plus, it could help flesh out Rin and Jockin's characters more if the anime hasn't done that already. It's honestly been a while since I last picked the series up, but from what I've seen, that hasn't been done that much. If it has though, be sure to tell me, but don't go into spoiler territory. Not necessarily for me, but for those that actually care about that stuff. After all, I haven't seen Citizen Kane, but I already know that Rosebud was the slut. Number 5. Takemaru of Setsuna. Admittedly, this character is kind of dumb in the beginning, but that can be chopped down to how he felt about Izayoi. He was so focused on preventing her from giving birth to a half-demon, he made quite a few mistakes while trying to kill her and Toga. But then again, his name does translate to heat of the moment. Still though, when you consider how most demons are treated in this show's universe, his actions aren't beyond the norm, and those tendencies clearly became intensified when it came to his feelings for Izayoi. He's definitely one of the most sympathetic villains to come out of these movies, because let's face it, Monomaru was bland as fuck, and Kaguya existed. I'm not saying he's villain of the year or anything, but compared to what we've got from the past couple of films, I'll take what I can get, and Takemaru proved to be alright for the most part. His involvement relates directly to the main character, his hatred of Inuyasha's family is justified on a personal level, and so is his use of Sounga. Again, not the best villain out there, but I could at least sympathize with him a bit. I wish he was developed more though, but again, I'll take what I can get. Well, that was all the good stuff I could say. On to what sucked. Number 1. The rest of the cast. Rin and Jockin are fine, but they weren't that useful. If it weren't for Sesshomaru being focused on more in this film, I'd say their inclusion was utterly pointless. They at least tried to help out near the end, both in the final battle and showing that Sesshomaru isn't a complete jerk. I personally liked seeing Totosai again, not only because his fire breath proved to be a bit useful this time around, but also because he's one of the funniest and down-to-earth characters this series gave us. Really wish he showed up more. Miyoga didn't really do much, and was basically a simple tag-along like usual. Saya also feels like a waste of time and is merely a means of exposition for Sounga and Toga to an extent. Moroku and Sango were okay, but the worst parts with them involved her getting mad at him for his pervertedness, which I was never that fond of, if at all. Plus, like usual, Moroku's wind tunnel has to take a back seat due to the usual miasma excuse. I'll talk more about that in a bit. As for Inuyasha and Kagome, they weren't as bad compared to the last two films, but scenes with them could still be pretty grating at times. Luckily, there is not as much shoehorned in romance elements, and they at least didn't bicker or bitch like they'd normally do, so yeah. Then there's Shippo. Do I even have to say it? He's a fucking coward. Even when he's given a moment in the spotlight, he gets scared and runs away. Just hurry up and burn these fucking zombies. I thought you were a fox, not a pussy! Number 2. The animation. You'd think with a bit of a budget increase, they'd find a way to make this film as, if not more, cinematic than the last one. Well, they kinda do, but only in certain parts. I especially liked the more horrific imagery in this film, especially near the end. However, it doesn't scratch that animation itch like the second film did. It looks better than the first, I'll give it that, but overall it's just meh. The worst part about it is that some of the fight scenes look terrible. There's so much repeated frame use and jump cutting, you'll get scene whiplash just watching a bit of it. There's also this one part about 71 minutes in that for a split second shows they forgot to put in a frame or two. That may not seem like a big deal, but it's so noticeable that I wanted to murder the closest person next to me. It was pretty unexpected! I already hate that running gag. Sounga is the worst villain ever. At first, I thought the idea of a third sword would be interesting, but when I found out what Sounga really was, I lost interest up until he resurrected Takemaru. I get that the sword represents hell, but did it really have to be so uber evil to the point of making nosed kills into zombies and having a miasma status effect? I didn't know we were using Pokemon logic in Inuyasha, but then again, I just talked about Totosai's flamethrower a little while ago. But still, the way this stuff is explained goes by so fast and feels like a cop-out to force the wind tunnel out of the picture until the end, which they pretty much do, much like the rest of the series. In a way, I feel bad for Moroku because of this. He's considerably the most powerful character in the series because of what is essentially a curse, and yet the writers go out of their way to not utilize him, or make it to where he can't be with some contrived reason for it. To be honest though, I can forgive Sounga's loopholes against Moroku. What I can't forgive is how played out this concept is. It's basically a Muramasa blade cranked up to 11. Think about it. A sword out for blood that is willing to kill anything and everything for the sake of power and destruction, and is willing to go through several users to find that one that will do what it says, and to top it off, it supposedly contains the soul of an evil dragon. If you ask me, they should have went a different direction for Sounga. Instead of making it sentient, why not just make it to where it fucks with your head if you weren't paying attention? Toga wasn't completely right of mind when he was trying to rescue Izayoi anyway, so wouldn't it have been the perfect opportunity for Sounga to take advantage of that for a split second? In fact, here's how I would write it. Toga takes out Sounga, then as he's fighting Takemaru, his injuries creep up on him, making him flinch in pain. In that split second, Sounga takes control and cuts down Takemaru, putting a bit of its demonic aura inside of him, connecting the two. This way, once Sounga's seal is broken, it would still possess Inuyasha, go back through the Bone Eater's well, find and resurrect Takemaru, and kick off the rest of the movie there. Only this time, Takemaru is the main focus, and we can even put in a bit more backstory on him in between scenes. We can even have him hanging out with Izayoi for a bit, showing how much he cared about her, and then when Toga comes into the picture, he can become a bitter asshole, which then gives further context to the opening scene. See? That wasn't so hard. I wasn't being critical for the sake of it, and I was able to make a constructive suggestion that could have made the movie better in contrast to what was actually made. Too bad what we got wasn't that good, though.
The ending fucking sucked!
This film is filled to the brim with wasted opportunities, but none of them are worse than the ending. Spoilers ahead if you actually care. 3, 2, 1. Once they get done killing Takemaru, Sounga goes apeshit, and everyone else keeps telling Inuyasha and Sesshomaru to work together, which results in Jakin getting his head beat in for protesting this. Once they finally do go for the finishing blow, Sesshomaru has this flashback sequence with Jakin and Rin saying his name over and over again, making me want to kill myself, and then he basically pulls a "it's not like I like them" or anything baka, and then Sounga dies from a combo attack. Then Toga's spirit shows up, thanks them, then cue credits. Now that it's over, I can finally give my rating. Wait, what? It's not over. Why are Inuyasha and Kagome sitting in a field talking? Why is she telling him to close his eyes? Wait, no. No. For the love of Butch Hartman's God, please don't do this. No. No. No, 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 you motherfucker! To conclude, Inuyasha 3 wasn't that bad, honestly. It's probably the best movie out of the bunch so far, and if I had to watch it again, I wouldn't completely be against it. However, it does have its fair share of issues. For what it is, though, it was more entertaining than I was expecting, and I had some fun watching it. I'm probably being a bit generous with this one, but I'll give it a 6. Now that that's over, it's time to get rid of this corpse. Maybe I can just throw it in that freak's backyard. Nobody ever looks there. Nobody.